Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Wednesday, January 2nd, 2019, and we're going to go through a 2020 presidential election prediction between Senator Bernie Sanders and President Donald Trump. So, in light of Elizabeth Warren running for president, there is now an official progressive running for president of the United States of America. The first one in a pretty long time that actually has a true chance at the nomination, which I think that means Bernie Sanders is probably going to run. Elizabeth Warren is not going to take the progressive vote alone. Now, if she does run with Bernie Sanders, which she most likely will, if they both assumingly make it through the first Iowa caucus, Bernie Sanders likely will be taking a lot of the vote away from Elizabeth Warren, and Elizabeth Warren away from Bernie Sanders. At the end of the day, I think both of them could be helpful to one another in terms of rallying votes at the end of the day. If it's just two progressives running, there's no real platform to disagree on. But if someone like Joe Biden enters the race, Julian Castro, Kamala Harris, going down that list of people, it's not going to look good for any type of candidate. Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders probably are the top names for right now. Elizabeth Warren throwing her hat in the ring. It's debatable as to whether or not now is her time. But if you look back, 2016, she could have ran, but now she's choosing to run now. So that's not the topic of today's video. Today we're going to be discussing Bernie Sanders' chance at the White House in the year 2020. Now, not much has changed since December. The overall circumstances are around the same. Government shutdown's the only thing really, I would say, pressing or new. I'm so sorry. My voice is probably stuffy right now. Sorry, my nose is stuffy. My voice probably sounds a little bit different. But we're going to go through this election prediction because it's going to be very interesting. I do think Bernie Sanders is going to run. Right now, looking at the overall chances, Bernie Sanders hasn't really dwindled in terms of his chances at the presidency. I really want to go through each state, and I do these every month, so it's nothing really different than what you guys might expect. So we'll start off with all the safe states. That's how I start off every single video. This time we'll actually do it by poll closing, so I don't know why it's set to that when the map options show safe. Oh, never mind. I'm not thinking. Safe and toss-up only, and then as we go through it, we're going to do this purely based on poll closing time. So, of course, if there's a toss-up state, we will get back to it. I'm going to label it as a yellow toss-up state, and that'll be that. So, Indiana, Kentucky goes to Trump. Vermont, of course, goes to Bernie Sanders, his home state. Virginia, I'm going to put as a toss-up state just for now. I don't know why it's not including that one. That's the one thing that is a little bit different. Virginia goes to Donald Trump, and Georgia goes – sorry, not Virginia, does not go to Donald Trump. I don't know why I'm saying that. Virginia and Georgia both become toss-up states. South Carolina goes to Trump. And then we move over into the 7:30 p.m. poll closings. West Virginia goes to Trump. North Carolina and Ohio become toss-up states. 8 p.m. rolls around. Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, Illinois goes to Sanders. Missouri and Oklahoma, along with those three other southern states, go to Donald Trump. And then Sanders runs up the Northeast and wins in a number of states, which puts him close to Donald Trump, winning in the 1st district in the state of Maine. New Hampshire becomes a toss-up. 2nd district becomes a toss-up. Maine at large is a toss-up. Pennsylvania is a toss-up. And then Florida is as well a toss-up, which puts an exact tie between Sanders and Trump. 8:30 rolls around. Arkansas goes to Donald Trump. 9 p.m. Louisiana, Texas toss-up for now. Kansas, I'm still going to leave in the Trump column. Nebraska, for the 2nd district, we're going to leave as a toss-up. South Dakota, North Dakota, Wyoming, all Trump states. Arizona's a toss-up. New Mexico and Colorado are Democratic states, joined by New York. And then Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota become part of the yellow states, and that puts Sanders at 119 electoral votes and Donald Trump at 109. We move over to Utah, Montana. Those two states go to Trump. Nevada goes to the toss-up column along with the state of Iowa, which puts it at around 118 electoral votes for Trump to 119 for Sanders. Idaho goes to Trump. Washington, Oregon, Hawaii, and then the big California goes to Bernie Sanders, which puts him at 197 electoral votes to Donald Trump's 122. We finish off in Alaska, giving their 3 electoral votes to Donald Trump. So we're about the same in terms of the numbers from the previous video in terms of safe states. Right now, Donald Trump wins in 125 electoral votes. Bernie Sanders wins 197 electoral votes. Now we can start moving over into the states that we know are toss-up states, but are probably going to vote a certain way at the end of the day. So right now, Texas, we know, is probably going to go to the GOP, regardless of who the nominee is for the Democratic Party. Unfortunately for them, I really don't think they're going to get that Beto O'Rourke type excitement, especially in a singular state when a candidate is trying to appeal to the entire United States of America. But anything really can go, but I just don't think that Bernie Sanders is the candidate to do so. As for the state of Virginia, we know that one's probably going to go to Bernie Sanders. Now, the interesting thing about this video, I'm not going to put margins in. It's going to be purely based off I guess, just winning this individual state. I'm going to include the margins in the future map just for right now. Starting off the new year, the election is officially 1 year away. Not exactly 1 year away, but still next year. The election's next year. But I'm just going to go ahead and start off with doing the safe states, and then the next prediction I will do in the margins. It's just I'm trying out something new. Going up to the state of Maine, we know Maine at large is probably still going to go to Bernie Sanders. That's an area where he does well, especially in the Northeast, joined by the state of New Hampshire, but we will be looking back at the 2nd District later on in the video. As for the state of Georgia, you can probably expect Donald Trump to win there. It's still a Republican state at heart, along with the state of North Carolina, and I just don't think Bernie Sanders is going to do well in southern states particularly, especially if you're not doing too well in the Democratic primary performance. Now, that leaves 128 electoral votes. Now, when we look at this, Bernie Sanders is right now in the lead with 216 electoral votes. Donald Trump has 194. A number of these states went to Trump in 2016. Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Iowa, Nebraska 2nd, Florida, Arizona. These states and Maine 2nd. All these states and congressional districts went to Donald Trump in 2016. The only states that are now toss-ups that went to Hillary Clinton in 2016, Minnesota and Nevada. That's it. So all of these states right now are not looking good for the president of the United States, especially with other states like North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas, which were just previously toss-ups. And I get it. They're close to every election season. But New Hampshire, sure, went to Sanders, was close. But that's 4 electoral votes. Georgia is worth 4 times the amount of New Hampshire. Okay, Virginia has 13 electoral votes. But why was Texas even considered a toss-up? Okay, Virginia has less than North Carolina and Georgia. And the point being, the Democratic Party has many more, I guess you could say, more areas to target for the 2020 presidential election, especially looking at the House vote in a number of these states. The Democratic Party did phenomenal in a number of these states. Iowa, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, Colorado, New Mexico. And though a number of these states, even though if they do flip, it's not going to be a landslide for the Democratic Party, it's still a win regardless. With 128 electoral votes, I'm going to go ahead and move Minnesota and Nevada into the Democratic column. Now, the reason being, these 2 states went to Hillary Clinton in 2016, number one. If you look at the 2018 midterm election results, it looked very well for the Democratic Party here. Nevada was a pickup by around 5%. The governor's race went to the Democratic Party, another pickup. Minnesota went to the Democratic Party in both Senate elections and the governor election, although they did lose a bit in the House. Those are already districts that were pretty conservative on their own, and both of these states are probably going to retain in the Democratic Party at the end of the day for Bernie Sanders. Now, that puts Sanders at exactly what Hillary Clinton got in 2016. But we can go ahead and start characterizing a couple or just one particular Trump state. That is the state of Arizona. For right now, I don't think Bernie Sanders is going to really excite the Latino population, and I don't think they're going to show out full as they could in a year like 2024, especially with Texas, Georgia, other states having changing demographics. 2020 may not be the year, but 2024, it seems very possible. Now, Arizona right now would go to the GOP. Still GOP at heart. I get it. They have a Democratic senator now. Okay, we'll see what happens in the Senate special election on the same ballot in 2020. But for right now, I would say Arizona goes to the GOP. That puts Trump at 205 electoral votes, Bernie Sanders at 232. Now, moving over to the Northeast, I would actually say Bernie Sanders picks up the 2nd District from the state of Maine. I do think Donald Trump's hold there was pretty much just because Hillary Clinton failed to appeal there. Obama appealed there, Kerry did, Gore did, Clinton did, and this is one of the few times where I actually flipped. Going against its own state. So right now, I would say that one goes in favor of Bernie Sanders, who has officially passed the Clinton margin from 2016. Now, for the state of Florida, I'm actually going to give that one to Donald Trump, which puts him ahead on this electoral map. And that may seem a little bit different. However, Florida for right now is not too much of a Democratic state. Republican in the governorship, Republican in both Senate offices now, majority Republican in both the state legislature, and then we look at the House of Representatives composition from the state of Florida. Florida, for as much as it's called a swing state, they've only elected 2 Democrats in statewide elections since the year 2000. For Maine, statewide elections, like governorships, Senate elections, and that's not a good sign for them, to be completely honest with you. But for right now, Florida would go to Donald Trump over Bernie Sanders. Again, with the progressive movement, I'm not so sure about Florida flipping compared to other Rust Belt states, which may seem more inclined to actually flip in favor of the Democrats. Speaking of those Rust Belt states, all 3 of them, I think, would flip to Bernie Sanders. He has a very, very strong hold here, especially in the primary season as well, which could be an indicator in terms of excitement amongst Democratic voters. Right now, the 3 Rust Belt states I would give to Bernie Sanders without question at this point in time, especially looking at the approval ratings of the president president, joined by the state of Ohio. I would say Ohio goes to Bernie Sanders on this electoral map, but also Iowa. That's the first flip that I've been contemplating for a while. Iowa went to Donald Trump in 2016 by nearing 10%. But I think Bernie Sanders can win here with appeal to rural voters, the working class voters. I think that he can bring in a new movement. I mean, Democrats have won in Kansas and Nebraska, and it's not too crazy to see how they couldn't win in Iowa, especially with Obama winning both those states in 2008 and 2012. And then Nebraska's 2nd district, I'm going to actually give that one to Bernie Sanders because I think he can reach out to voters there and actually win in a district that only went to Barack Obama in 2008, and that was the last time it went to a Democrat. So that wraps up today's video. Bernie Sanders with 304 electoral votes, Donald Trump at 234. Thank you guys for watching this video. Comment down suggestions below, and I will see you all tomorrow.